Hope you're having a nice start to a little chillier day than we may be used to, but nonetheless sunny, wonderful. I'm happy that it's sunny. Today is my golf day, and of course, who wants to play golf on a rainy day? Nobody, not me. That's for sure. We're just waiting for a guest of mine to come on, and I'll introduce him once he gets here. We've got some interesting things that we've been working on. Um, Many of you know that we've been working on all kinds of joint projects with the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce on trying to make sure we get information out to you folks and to the rest of the business community. Not exclusive just to members, because we want to help every business through the struggles and trials and tribulations that we've had. You know, I think it was the finance minister the other day who said this is the deepest recession since, the Depression. What's kind of interesting about that is we all shake our heads a little bit at that because, it was certainly not as a result of consumer confidence. It was a self-imposed recession, I guess, to some degree, which in the end, I think, hopefully we're keeping all of our fingers crossed and toes crossed that, in fact, the recovery will be a lot quicker than it would normally be out of a given recession. So, and hopefully the supports that have been out there have helped as many as possible. I know they're not perfect. We struggle every day with trying to make sure that the regulations around the supports are including as many as possible. Unfortunately, government is slow moving, really not that familiar with ground level activities, especially when you get into the bureaucracy, and it is what it is. But we are still fighting every single week. We're on calls, we're on communication portals with ministers, with bureaucrats, with senior bureaucrats as well. One of our probably closest colleagues has been a senior bureaucrat, actually assistant deputy minister to Minister Ning in Industry Canada's portfolio. Frances McRae is her name. She has been absolutely incredible to work with. She is right on our side and pushing all the time for us. And my guest showed up. My goodness, it's unbelievable. But we've got him for a short period of time because he is also on the Police Services Board. And he ducked out of that meeting, hid from the chief.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, actually on a different computer, I think. But this morning, I reached out to a good friend of mine, my close contact in the chamber world, of course, my colleague from the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, but also co-host with me on Business to Business that airs Sunday at noon on 570 News. Ian McLean, President CEO of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. Ian, welcome this morning.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Greg. Now, I would point out to everybody that you use the word Ian McLean and good friend only because you called me at 7:30 and said, I need you to really come and talk about this ambassador program. So I'm not going to be offended that good friend only comes when you need me no, I'm just kidding. Always good to be with you, and this is such an important program. I'm glad to make time for it today.
Yeah, it's Ian. You know that's not true. You know that you're the only person I could probably reach out to at 7:30 in the morning and get them on at 9 o'clock in the morning. So
anytime.
But anyway, Ian, we've launched a number of programs, and many of them we've talked about on these types of programs and on our radio show. But one program that we're pretty excited about that we launched this week is the COVID Safe Ambassador Program for small and medium-sized businesses. So why don't you, because there's a lot of people on this call that would probably fit into the realm of taking advantage of this free service provided by the Chambers of Commerce in the region of Waterloo and the region of Waterloo as well. So why don't you give us some highlights on it and what people can do?
So I'm going to just rewind just a little bit. From 15 months ago, we all got into COVID, and you and I early on said, we got to work together. We got to do it for all our members. And matter of fact, we said, it's got to be for any business, right? We all got to kind of pitch in. So I think it was actually you and Lisa and your team came up with chambercheck.ca and said, look, we've got different programs we want to do. Why would we both do them separately? And in particular, we had with Axonify, I guess it started with Axonify when we did our Chamber Business Ready, which is the online version of this ambassador program, where you could do online safety training around COVID, et cetera. Then with all the cash flow support programs, we said, well, we should do an Ask the Expert. There's lots of questions around how to access wage subsidy and rent program, and there's provincial programs. So we did an Ask the Expert, which you and I do, I think every 2 or 3 weeks, we do a session. So we've added these programs. Then, of course, we've piloted, which is now across the country, our rapid screening and masks that we got from Eclipse Automation, which are free and available to any business. So this was the natural, logical extension when NSF came to the region of Waterloo, and then Matt Shandy from the region came to us and said, "Hey, look, we want to do this ambassador program." And you and I both looked at it and said, "Okay, if it's safe or if it's free, if it's voluntary, if it's business friendly, and it's something that would be a tool for small and medium-sized businesses, we're happy to work with you." And it took a bit of time, but that's what we ended up with. And this program has been great. It was sort of soft launched last week. I think there was maybe 80 or 100 visits made by the first group of ambassadors. And what they do is they go in, say, I'm Bob or Betty from the ambassador program. Would you like some time and for us to help you make sure that your business is open and it's safe and you're doing all the safety protocols? Because what we know, Greg, and we've been saying to people is when we reopen, we can't close again. Otherwise, there's too many people are going to be hurt. But that also means there's a responsibility on us as business leaders, but also in businesses to use masks, use rapid screening to keep your business operations safe. And this ambassador program is a great way to do that because it's a free resource where you either on the phone or better yet, invite one of these ambassadors to come in who are experts and can help you through saying, here's how to clean your site. Here's how to, appropriate social distancing while you have the certain percentages of customers that are allowed in your store. So it's and NSF, I think you pointed out yesterday as we announced this on the press conference, NSF is a internationally recognized. They've been around for a long time. They do these sorts of safety training within generally or in larger business settings, but this is a great opportunity for small businesses to get the benefit of this tremendous organization. And that's what we're trying to do, Greg, is promote this through Chamber Check of saying just another tool. Because I would say this, and we say this all the time. Vaccines are the way through this. Everyone, we got to get to mass vaccination so we can truly get past this. In the interim, things like medical grade masks, making sure we're using the rapid screening kits on a regular basis, doing the safety training online, or in this case with the ambassador program, are the tools and the currency of the moment. That's what we have to use right now to open, reopen, and do it safely.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this, and when you and I went through this, I think we were approached actually late last year. I think it was around December 2020. We started to talk about this program because NSF had quite a good experience in Michigan, actually. They went through thousands of businesses and helped them. And part of the problem is some of the frustrations that you and I faced in getting calls from our members or from members of the business community were, inspectors would show up. There might be a provincial inspector for one thing, and they'd be getting conflicting views and, And of course, no one likes to see an inspector come forward when they think they're following the rules because,
Yep.
the guidelines have been out, but nothing's been very, very clear. So what we tried to tailor this program to be was that support mechanisms for small businesses to be able to say, let us come in. We'll come in and give you some advice. We'll give you some direction and some guidance, and some clear understanding of what the regulations and rules are, so that when the inspector does come to your door, if in fact that ever happens, you don't have to worry so much. And I think that was maybe our primary concern, Ian, was we didn't want this to feel like an inspection. We wanted this to feel more like a hand holding and a support mechanism coming from business leaders to business leaders. And I think we've achieved that goal.
Yeah, I think that's bang on it. I mean, where this got to, and what we first heard was it didn't sound business friendly to us. And I think, to give credit to the region, they said no, this is for business. So they specifically came to you and I and our teams and said, how do we make it business friendly? What are the things that we need to do to get this program so that any small business will be comfortable picking up that phone and saying, yes, could you send someone down and not be worried about it? Because at the end of the day, I don't believe that there's one of our members or any business, quite frankly, who doesn't want to do business the right way or safely, but they have to be given the tools to do that. And recognizing that, especially after 3 lockdowns, many businesses just do not have the resources to do it. So making it free and making it voluntary were 2 essentials for us, and I think the region, to their credit, and to public health and to NSF and our team, we've made that happen. I think the other part, which is nice, is not one and done. When you ask someone to come in, they come and say, hey, look, and they'll give you up to 2 hours to go through your work facility and say, okay, here's the checklist of things you probably want to do. It's up to you as the business owner, Greg, to go and do that. But you can call back up and say, hey, look, it was 2 weeks ago, but would you come back in? I want to make sure I got it right. They're going to give you that free time. Now, if you're paying someone to do it, it could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars of time and effort. And this is all being made available free. And I think that in this moment, that's important, that we support small businesses with the programs that they need to open or reopen and do it safely, because this is with us for a long time. I hope that we get the 2 vaccinations for everyone by the end of the summer. But even if we do, there's going to be, you have to get to 85% before you kind of get the herd immunity, according to the latest numbers. We're probably going to all have to have a booster in November, December, or January. The variants are very, very sneaky little devils. And so while there's any opening, we got to be conscious of that. So masks, medical grade masks, which they can get free through chambercheck.ca. Rapid screening kits, 2-3 times a week for your employees to make sure that you're safe, they're safe, and your customers are safe. The ambassador program of having come in and say, what is the latest and greatest that we know now to keep your business safe? All of those are the tools that we're going to need between now and probably this time next year, is when I think we'll really come out of it and say, geez, we may not have to wear masks, and we can get away from some of those things, but we've got a long way to go. And so we need to make sure, and I think this is one thing I'm particularly proud of, is that both of our teams and our chambers, without asking where people are from, are saying, we're going to make sure we do everything we can to make sure everyone on this call today, everyone on any of our membership roles, or broadly the business community, have the tools they need to reopen, and do it safely in this next period of time, which is the how do we live with COVID period of time, which is not a matter of weeks. It's probably still a matter of months. And so, let's make these things free, accessible, easy to access, and that's going to be really important for the business community moving forward.
Yeah, I think we concluded very early in the game on this, that in our discussions with politicians and senior bureaucrats, and of course even with our colleagues at the provincial and federal chamber, that it's going to be business that's going to lead the way out of the pandemic from an economic perspective. Government need business to start generating revenues and paying taxes and helping to offset the enormous cost this has been to our economy. But at the same time, business needs to lead the way from a health and safety perspective as well. We need to make sure that we're doing absolutely everything to get open, stay open for as long as we possibly can. What are your feelings about some of these, maybe not just these initiatives, but what are some of your feelings with the prospects of us having success at gaining more and more traction of opening throughout the balance of this summer, at least?
Yeah, I guess I'm confident that if we, people can't let their guard down, right? So when we say we're reopening and we're having minimums on the patios and not getting together inside, that's the big one here. Is indoor gatherings will be our undoing. If people get together indoors, it's inevitable that we'll have a big spike, and that's not good for hospitals, ICUs, illness, vaccination rates, the whole thing.
Mhm.
So if we follow the rules, I think that and being outside is the safest thing you can do when you want to be together with people. I think if we follow those rules, and if business is following those rules, I think there's a reasonable prospect we can get through this. But it also rests in doing those right things as we reopen, which, everyone can take issue with the reopening framework. And I know there's lots of people that are going to be hurt by that. And that's why we keep advocating for, while those businesses that can't open right away for maybe public health reasons, the government needs to support them federally and provincially. They need to be saying, if you're not allowed to be open, then we're going to help you financially to make sure that while you can't be open, that you're supported. But we have to do our bit in terms of following the rules and vaccinating. The tracks have two rails on them, and one of them is making sure we get everyone and their dog to get a vaccination as quickly as possible, because that ultimately is the way through this. So, but I'm confident. I think we're seeing the vaccination rates across the country going up. Ontario is doing very well. I think as we have more supply of vaccines, they're accelerating. I know you've been moved up. I think I'm being moved up in terms of a second vaccination. I think with accelerating vaccinations, following these safety or the public health guidelines, and having these tools, when you put it all together, I think that there's and it's not fingers crossed, but fingers crossed and doing the right thing will leave us in a good position to reopen the economy. Because as I say, Greg, and we say this all the time, and I hate to admit this, but I probably talk to you more than I talk to my kids in a given week, because we're always on the phone dealing with something. But we cannot afford another lockdown. I mean, businesses, owners with their dreams and their business and their livelihoods, they can't afford to close down. The provincial economy, the Canadian economy cannot withstand another lockdown. It means we all got to dig deep. We got to do the things we know we got to do, even though we're a little frustrated and tired. I think if we do that, though, I think we're in pretty good shape now. The numbers are, frankly, this is as low as they've been since I think last September or August. Yeah. So we're in pretty good shape, but hospitalizations are still an issue. And so following the public health guidelines, using the tools that we're making available and others are making available, and getting vaccinated are sort of the three legs of the stool that I can tell that help us get to that point when we can really, go back to normal, although it's going to be somewhat different, but the normal that we once knew.
Well, I'm double jabbed now, and I look forward to the day when you and everybody on this call is double jabbed, and we can safely start to do things. In the last minute or two that I have you, can you tell everyone on this call what they should be doing Sunday at noon, because this is going to be a really good one.
Yes. Well, I want, and you have to listen to this sentence, because you can't take any breaks and you can't leave anything out. I encourage everyone to go and listen at noon on Sunday on 570 News to Canada's #1 business show that is on at noon on 570 News on Sundays. You have to say all of that together for it to be accurate. But no, great. We always have a lot of fun with business to business. Sundays at noon on 570. This week, I think we're going to have Dr. Sharon Ball, who's part of the vaccine advisory committee here in the region of Waterloo, which is going to be fascinating of where we're at, where she sees things going in terms of our vaccination program here locally. JD Bellavance, Joel Denis Bellavance, the Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse, and he will be on talking about the G7 and Canada's role, what happened this week, as well as border reopen. We're going to have a discussion around the importance of how we safely do that, but the importance of that to the Canadian economy. And then our old friend, well, I shouldn't say old, he always gets mad when I call him that, our good friend, Tom Torty, and he, of course, is the president CEO of the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce in Burlington, Vermont. And he'll talk to us about Canada, US, and the reopening of the border. And of course, as some of your listeners here or watchers today will know, Burlington, Vermont is right near Montreal. So they have a very, in particular, the Quebec economy and Vermont. So should be a fascinating show. And we'll look forward to having all three of those guests on this week.
Ian, thanks very much for taking the time. I know we did hop you out of a police services board meeting. We want you to get back there so that business's voice is at the table for police services in the region of Waterloo. Thanks, buddy.
Okay,
we'll chat later. Thanks.
See you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Ian McLean, President CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, a very close friend of mine and colleague of mine. We worked on a number of projects, and I think, quite frankly, you know, the old saying of two heads are better than one. I think we've demonstrated that from our perspective, certainly throughout this pandemic. We've always been pretty good friends and working colleagues together, but I think over the last year, we both really said we have this responsibility, and it kind of opened up the window of what a Chamber of Commerce is really for. And a Chamber of Commerce is really to be that steady driver through issues and problems that businesses have, provide products and services that otherwise wouldn't be accessed by small and medium-sized businesses. And certainly through this, fighting for program enhancements and making sure as many people as possible or many businesses as possible can be supported, but also the tools. And Ian and I are really big on the tools. We've been calling for this rapid screening kit program since actually last May, since they first started coming out with them. We kept hammering the government and saying, we need to get these into the workplaces, because oddly enough, the workplaces were always the ones that were blamed for spread. And we, of course, have different opinion on that. But if they were going to continue to blame workplaces, we wanted to make sure the government did all they could to provide opportunities for workplaces to stay safe. This last program, as Ian and I talked about a little bit, we were really concerned about it. When we were first approached from the ambassador program, this could not feel like an inspection. And we were very concerned with that connectivity between regional government and the program. And so at that point, fortunately and wisely, I think, regional government listened to us and they said, yeah, you folks need to be the leaders and the drivers in this. We want you to be the champions of this program, and we want to make sure that we hit all of the marks that you need. I can tell you, the businesses that we did on the soft launch, a number of businesses that welcomed the ambassadors in, they had a great experience with them, great information, and they feel more protected as a business, not just from a virus perspective, but more protected from the ideas that they know now how to make sure that they're in compliance with all of the regulations. Because I can tell you, when we developed our Get Ready program back in October, we had a individual senior inspector with public health on our little group as we started to develop the programs and what was important and what training you really needed as a business owner. And he was pretty forthright with it and saying every time the provincial government came down with legislative changes or or regulatory changes with respects to public health guidelines, they weren't given all of the information at local public health. So they did not know whether or not they were reading the legislation correctly, interpreting the regulations that might have been in place the way the government wanted it to. There was a lot of miscommunication and problems there. So we really looked at this program as saying we can get this outside third-party viewpoint from experts in the field. NSF, if some of you haven't heard of them, they're an international company that specializes in workplace health and safety controls and guidelines. And they're in virtually every country in the world. And they are simply the experts. Michigan actually was the first state in the United States to enact them. And they had tremendous success and tremendous success in the point where businesses were actually safe places to go because they were given the guidelines, the tips, the little instructions to make sure that they were in compliance, but more importantly, that they were doing the right things to keep everyone safe, including their staff as well as their customers. So we think these are really important tools. And one more thing on the ambassador program before I open it up and see if we have any questions or comments. The ambassador program in the region of Waterloo that we just officially launched yesterday, is the first of its kind in Canada. Not unlike several weeks before we launched the rapid screening antigen kit distribution program here in the region of Waterloo, which was also the first of its kind in Canada. So as I've always said, most of you who have been around for a long, long time know that I always tell the story about how this is the center of the universe. We just keep piling on the evidence to affirm that. There's no question about it. We are the center of the universe. This is where all good things start. And this is where all good things happen. So we're here to help you, keep you as protected as we possibly can, and give you the tools that you need to get open, stay open, and never close again, because we know how uncertain times are right now for a lot of small businesses who are looking down the road and hearing these rumors that possibly we could have a fourth wave. And saying it's just going to be impossible for me to close my doors again. I need to slowly keep opening that door, and the only way through that is extra tools to keep the workplaces safe, but also vaccinations. And I think we're on both paths as we're going as hard as we possibly can, and the steam engines are working overtime. So with that, I'd love to open it up to some comments and talk about if you have any questions, if you're interested in having one of the ambassadors come around and have a look at your place and give you some tips and guidance. And, it actually costs you nothing other than some time that you may be required to show the ambassador around. These are well-trained, highly skilled college students, actually, but they're in health and safety and medical courses within their college or university. So they're bright young folks there to help. All they want to be is a help to you, and they're, I think it's going to be a very successful program. Got any questions? Any comments? Are you worried about this? Do you think it's a good program? Do you think, how do you think small businesses will receive it? Be interesting to hear from you. Just go ahead and unmute and jump in. Carolyn, do you want them to come out and have a look at your place out there in the airport?
Hi, Greg.
Hi.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about it. I'll have to see if we're interested. It sounds like a neat program.
Yeah, I think it'll be, well, you're kind of, you're not really part of the region Waterloo, but you're tied very closely to them because you have access to the airport staff. But I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting program that, I think you got to make time for them, obviously, and you want to make sure that that you get the information that you think you're going to need. But they go right down to the details of what's interesting is if some of you have taken our Get Ready program. One of the comments we had last week was kind of interesting. From actually, it was an individual coming in to pick up her kits for her business here for her rapid screening kits. And she said she just loved the program. Well, what she didn't realize is there's a difference between cleaning and sanitizing countertops and desks and that kind of stuff. So what you will learn on Get Ready on the Get Ready training app is that you must first clean your desktops or your countertops, and then you sanitize afterwards. Otherwise, all you're doing is sanitizing the dirt that's on your desk, and it doesn't necessarily get down to the countertop itself or the desk itself. So it's really important to do the cleaning process first, and then utilizing a high grade sanitization ingredients to make sure that you get proper sanitization of the element as well. So it is kind of interesting, and I think things like this, what's going to be interesting with this ambassador program is some of these things we're going to want to continue even post-pandemic, even when the leading story of the day isn't COVID-19 or variants or whatever it happens to be, and we get mass vaccination. Good news is 90% of Canadians now feel that they'd like to get their vaccine. So the vast majority of Canadians likely will end up getting their vaccine. But I don't know about you, but I had probably the best winter from a health perspective that I've ever had. I didn't get a sniffle. I didn't get a cold. I didn't get the flu. I felt wonderful. It was, and I'm thinking the only thing that changed was obviously the physical distancing part was important, but it wasn't 100% because you can't keep physically distanced 100%. I think the masks were probably 80 to 90% of that because even though I might have been in a store or in a gathering or in a group, I had my mask on, and that was stopping a lot of the intrusion of viruses and bacteria that I might be inhaling. And then the fact that we probably washed our hands more than we've ever washed our hands in the last year, probably in the previous, well, in my case, previous 60 plus years. It's now just, it's what you do. You sanitize your hand or you wash your hands. Nobody thinks twice about it anymore, and nobody thinks it's odd that you're washing your hands so much. So I think all of those elements will probably stick with us forever. If you remember, and I think I talked about this maybe on One Chamber Chat a long time ago, back when we had SARS, I think that was 2003, 2004, somewhere in that area. I can remember then, like hand sanitizer was, you couldn't get enough hand sanitizer. Everybody had a bottle on their counter or their desk or wherever. We got these, automatic ones in our facility at that time. Boy, that was the big deal. They never, ever went away. You can, even before this pandemic, you would walk into an office setting and 9 times out of 10, you would see a bottle of hand sanitizer sitting there for you to pump if you wanted to use it. And that was SARS, which wasn't obviously as big a deal as this is, and was gotten under control very, very quickly, only because it didn't spread quite as easily as this one. But you know, I think a lot of these protocols and these individual things are going to make sense to you and I and business owners everywhere, because we know our staff have been healthier through the winter. We've had less sick days through the winter. And I think we're going to try and keep some of these protocols around. So with that, having the ambassadors come around and talk to you exactly about what are the best practices, what are the important elements that are going to keep your workplace and your business free and clear of not just COVID-19, but all viruses and all bacteria, then I think it's a great program to have them come in, look at your business and say, what can we do better? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And you're going to adopt some of these programs and probably be there for, you know, forever. I just don't see a lot of this going away. Sure, we'll start to, you know, leave our masks in our car, and we won't walk back to our car when we get up to the door of the store and say, oh shoot, I forgot my mask. We may not do that. But there's no question about it. If we have the mask, we'll probably use it. And it won't seem odd to see someone in the grocery store wearing a mask, like it would have been a year and a half ago. If you went into a grocery store or into any department store and you saw somebody with a mask, you'd think, what the heck is that? What's going on? They must have some serious illness that they have to protect themselves from, or they're, you know, really one of these people that are worried about pollution and dander and all kinds of things that are floating around in the air. But today, we don't even turn our heads to it. And I don't think we will in the future as well. Any other questions or comments? What do you think about that? Do you think this stuff's going to stick around?
I was just gonna say, Greg, it's weird to see people without a mask now. It's you kind of look and go, oh.
Yeah, isn't that so? Yeah, you know, in fact, it was so funny. I was going into a store the other day, and there was a guy ahead of me walking into the same store, and he did not have a mask on. And I thought, you know, like, to tell you the truth, especially if it's a younger person, you know, middle-aged person, it kind of irritates me a little bit, because I think, you know, like, you know, I understand people who maybe have, you know, asthma or really serious problems breathing through a mask. Now, if they were to use a medical grade mask, they would be able to tolerate it a lot better. But it kind of irritated me a little bit. And he walked in the door and he didn't get 5 steps inside the door and then suddenly realized, oh, shoot, I forgot my mask. And so just as I was walking in the door, he turned around and looked at me and stepped back a couple of feet. And he says, oh, excuse me, I forgot my mask. I feel so bad. He says, I got to go back to my car. And so I just held the door for him as he went out and went and retrieved his mask. But you know, here my impression in the beginning was, here's somebody that's intentionally bucking the system, when actually it was probably just another Greg Durocher who forgot his mask. And I don't think I've gotten inside the store before, but I've got to the handle and grabbed the handle and then realized I didn't have my mask. So you think this stuff's going to stick around? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's going to stick around for a little while. It's you know, I think we're still probably another 3 years before everything sort of settles down again. You know, I'll be honest, I'm really missing seeing people face to face and having conversations without a mask. I had some clients in yesterday, and I just find it difficult I've got a mask, they've got a mask, I've got a sneeze guard, and we're sitting here in one room with the door open. And it's difficult to talk to each other, and also just to see each other's facial expressions, just to see a smile.
Yeah, you know, everybody says, well, I can tell you can smile with your eyes. I don't know about that. You can you could be mad too, and it looks exactly the same, like,
Well, the benefit of getting older is you do get the wrinkles, so.
yeah. I noticed that you go out into the sun and people will think you're smiling because you're kind of squinting like you would when you smile. But Caroline, you were going to say something. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I was reading an article the other day. It was talking about when we'll start to get back to events, like networking events, and that there's a company, they were making wristbands and they were different colors. So if it was green and you wore green, that meant you were okay with shaking hands or whatever. If you were red, then that meant like, no, I'm not okay with that. Just wave at me or something. So I thought that was interesting. And like, we're going to get into kind of these color coded signals about what we're comfortable with.
I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of different, but yeah.
Like it, that could be, maybe we should do that for chamber events where people can put on a red band or a green band or a yellow band. I don't know what a yellow band might mean, but it might mean something like, Yeah.
Depends who you are. No.
Yeah. Cautious band. But
I think there was like a yellow band. I can't remember what it was. It was just meant you're okay with maybe shaking hands. Can't remember. But
maybe you could have
I thought that was interesting. It kind of takes away the awkwardness. Like right now it's kind of like, oh, we're not supposed to touch or anything. Are you okay with fist pumping or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It kind of takes that away. You have your colored band and you're like, this is what I'm comfortable with. So.
Love the idea. I'm going to look into it for our events because I think that might be very, very cool. And then it's it is, people are more comfortable. You just you get that discrete signal that this person is okay to shake hands, this person isn't. I think that would be really good. Maybe we should have a green band with like gold stripes in it, and that means that I'm good to do anything because I'm double vaccinated.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah. It kind of made me think of the mood rings, like you're whatever mood you're in for what you're comfortable.
That might be cool too. Could we do that somehow?
Yeah.
What are you doing at the flight center? Caroline is at the flight center, and so what are you doing from a training perspective with students and instructors?
Well, I moved to the airport now.
Oh, good.
I just went across the parking lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at the flight center, I know they're masking. They have like a plastic shield in the planes between the two pilots. Mm-hmm. And then there are students who do they have to build up their solo hours. So they're flying by themselves.
Yeah.
Which is fine. So so there's a lot of that and masks in the building. They sanitize, I think 3 times a day or something pretty frequently. So yeah. And at the airports, we're under the region at the airport. So, masking, sanitizing, hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah.
I think they're getting busier.
Well, they're going to get busier soon. I think we're going to be talking about border reopenings next week. And, Americans are getting pretty anxious to have us come over there and spend our money. Hopefully they'll come over here and spend their money if they're double vaccinated. But I can remember though, Caroline, when I took my flying lessons, let me tell you, when you're in a Cessna, there is no physical distancing there between you and your instructor.
No, it's pretty tight. Yeah.
I had a real tiny young lady who was my instructor, and I'm not a tiny guy, and our shoulders were bumping up. I couldn't imagine having a person my size in there being my instructor, because I think they'd had to put us in there with a shoehorn, and you might not have got the doors closed. Might have had to fly with the doors off. I don't know, but which would be fun too.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What do you think? Chris, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking, I think one thing we're going to need to do no matter what happens is educate people better on how to dispose of their masks. I'm getting
Oh.
really upset with tripping over piles of this. I mean, the whole purpose of the mask is to keep your germs away.
Yeah.
And throwing them on the ground does not contribute to that at all. I mean, it's just, I don't understand the mentality of people, you know, they're just like, we don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Crazy.
that's a big problem. There's no question, because you know, I think everybody on this call can think of a time that they pulled into a parking lot or walked into a store, or, you know, or been at a gas station and seen a mask laying in the parking lot or beside the garbage can or whatever the case may be. I think you're right. There's, you know, it's not unlike just, you know, being a little courteous. Like people oddly enough won't walk 10 steps to a garbage container. So, you know, I can remember having this discussion years ago because somebody complained about the parks, you know, having all kinds of litter in them. And of course, the city would say, well, like we got 1 million, you know, trash containers in the park. Like, what do we have to do? Like put them every 3 feet? And, you know, and maybe it appears that in some cases you have to do that. It's really sad that you can't, you know, walk to a trash, because trash containers are virtually everywhere. You know, I know they took them out of the golf course, so it is a little bit of a pain in the neck there if you've got some, but that's what your golf bag's for, because you, by the time you're halfway through the round, you've drained it of all the golf balls, so you got lots of room in there for your trash. So
Any other some of us have an auxiliary bag for extra golf balls that we hang on the side.
Well, yes, some of us need that. That's for sure. No question about it. Any other comments? What do you think about the longevity of these protocols from a business perspective? And more importantly, I'd like to get your feedback or interest in this ambassador program, whether you think it's got some value. Maggie says that the wristband thing is like Lulu's with the balloons, for those who remember Lulu's. You remember the balloons in Lulu's? Do you remember Lulu's? If you don't, you're, you know, a much different vintage than I am, because I certainly remember Lulu's. I think you'd have to be younger than about, oh boy, my daughter is 30 years old, and I took her to an event there when she was about 9. So, you know, you'd probably have to be 30 to remember Lulu's. So most of you will, I'm sure. What do you think, Davis? Are you going to be wearing a mask forever and ever and ever, or are you ready to get rid of it? Or Steve? Steve, I think, is fully vaccinated right now.
No, I've just got my 1 shot a couple of weeks ago. So
No, Steve Mantione, who's on here from.
okay, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, he. I think he's fully vaccinated. I got mine the other day. I went on 2 lists. I went on a Shoppers Drug Mart list for if they had any extras that at the end of a day and they didn't have any appointments that I could pop in. Or I also went on the Regional Waterloo because I was eligible to upgrade to my 2nd shot. But oddly enough, I got the text from the Regional Waterloo to sign up for my shot. It was supposed to be today at 1:05. But again, this is my golf day, folks. So, but I was willing to give up my golf game to get my 2nd shot. However, oddly enough, but what's that?
I was just going to say I am fully vaccinated, and and my 2 daughters, one was vaccinated Monday and got her 2nd shot Monday, and my youngest daughter, who's 25, gets hers today. So we're almost fully vaccinated in our family.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I got the call from last Friday in the morning from Shoppers Drug Mart, and they said, we've got an extra dose. Can you get in here? And I said, well, I'll be in there by the time you hang up the phone. So I jumped in my car and went right away, and I had to go that quickly because I did have a tea time shortly after that. So and I think the pharmacist thought I was a little bit crazy. You mean you're going to go play golf after getting the, well, what's the big deal? It's just a needle. So but I understood that some people had younger people mostly had a little bit of trouble with the second shot. They got some headaches or felt kind of draggy. Didn't in fact my second shot I didn't even have a sore arm. So Chris, have you had your second shot?
Not yet. I'm in Guelph here where I'm waiting for a text from the health group, whatever it's called, Wellington Public Health or something. No, I just had a question. Do you guys wear masks when you're playing in your foursome?
No, we do at the when we're around the clubhouse, like even outside in front of the clubhouse, we'll wear it. But no, it's actually some guys forget that they got their mask on and then they tee off and their ball goes in the water. And then I say to them, well, it's probably because you got your mask on. And then they say, oh, shoot, yeah, I forgot to take my mask off. But no, generally we don't. But you know what? Like, really, when you're outside and you're that far away, most of the guys I play with are probably at least single vaccinated, probably double vaccinated, a lot of them. You can't touch the flag stick anymore. So they have an automatic, like you just stick your putter in them and it pulls the ball out of the hole for you. So there's lots of we don't ride double in a cart. I don't take a cart anyway. I walk, but and really, boy, oh boy, if two in your foursome ever hit their ball within 6 feet of each other, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of congregating going on in the forest.
No, the reason I ask is I'm right across the street from the Guelph Country Club.
Yep.
And one of the holes is literally right in front of my house. And I've noticed that nobody there's wearing masks, but
they're I think they're supposed to, like I think they're in some cases, if there's two in a cart, even if they're from the same household, they're supposed to wear a mask. Unless there's the they do have plastic dividers now.
Yeah,
in
the carts. Yeah, I noticed that too.
You don't have to.
No, I just curious because the day it opened, like I think the course opens at 8:30 or something, and there was a continuous stream of foursomes going past that hole.
Would there ever be? Well, but I think Golf Canada had some statistics out. Last summer, there was 20 million rounds of golf in Canada, and not one.
Not one. Frankly, I didn't understand why it closed because, like you said, I mean, other than the tee off on the first hole, we're not usually together except when you tee off, and after that, everybody's off in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, I have often said to some of my colleagues that I play golf with is at the 18th hole, I say, "Oh, nice to see you again." Because I hadn't seen them for many holes. But it's and I think they're putting in. I can tell you, the Golf Country Club where I play, they put a ton of effort into making sure. Even on their patio, I was a little bit surprised because normally I would enter and, the halfway house is by the patio. And, so I just started to walk through and they said, no, you can't come through there now. We don't let anybody come through there. You got to go around. And so they put in some good controls. And, I think, ventures like that are panicky about the fact that they don't want anything to happen. And they're doing their screenings now too. So now that they've opened, they screen their employees twice a week. So that's been an incredible program. We've captured not as many as you'd maybe think out of, probably 100,000 reports that we've had. We've had about, somewhere around 40 positive cases, but all of them have translated into positive PCR. So there were no false positives out of 100,000 reports that we've had. So the efficacy of these test kits are maybe even better than we kind of anticipated in the very beginning. So they're good tools, and I think they're going to play some value even as we go through the summer. More people get vaccinated. We're hearing a lot of stories now where I think there was a cruise ship going out of Miami where all fully vaccinated, 500 fully vaccinated people were on board. 2 of them actually tested positive because they did some screening before they went on. 2 of them tested positive, totally asymptomatic, older folks in their 70s, I think, or late 60s. Had no symptoms at all, but they were confirmed positive, and so we got to worry a little bit about that, as that percentage of the population who doesn't get vaccinated, because you will never get to 100% vaccination. We got to worry about that. I don't want, if I get it and don't know I have it, I don't want to give it to someone who hasn't been vaccinated. Like, that's the last thing that I want to do. So, we gotta be cautious about that and remember that. So that's why I think some of these protocols will stick around. We're gonna have to, and maybe that's where the wristband comes in, Caroline. I think that's an awesome idea. We gotta investigate that maybe a little. What do you think, Melissa? That sounds like a really cool idea.
Yeah, it does. I think we should look into that.
Yeah. Anyway, well, folks, have a great rest of your Wednesday and a great rest of the week. I know it's going to be nice the rest of the week. I think we're going to have a few showers, some cold front coming in or something like that. But John Wilson this morning on 570 News said it's going to be a great weekend. So have a good rest of the week and an even better weekend. See you next week.